Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today to discuss an important yet highly overlooked topic, menopause and perimenopause in the workplace. Firstly, I would like to start by acknowledging the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of the lands we're on today. Even though we are meeting on a digital platform, I wish to take this opportunity to recognise the importance of the lands we call home. Also, we would like to extend our thoughts and support to anyone affected by the cyclone in northern New South Wales and southern Queensland. We are thinking of you and hope everyone affected and their families are safe. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Raina Prasad and I am a Client Services Manager at CXC. Before I hand over to Vicky Carolyn, I wanted to share some stats with you all. Women represent 60% of the workforce in Australia. Despite this, menopause and perimenopause remain taboo topics. Women often suffer in silence, feeling isolated and unsupported, while their struggles are overlooked. This silence perpetuates stigma, preventing meaningful workplace changes and leading to adverse effects on careers, productivity, and mental health. We conducted a survey on our workforce and found 78% of respondents reported experiencing menopause or perimenopausal symptoms. Of this, 20 to 25% of respondents face ongoing challenges, with some struggling to perform their duties effectively, and 44% of respondents said they do not feel comfortable bringing up menopause-related challenges in the workplace, with 31% feeling like it had the potential to negatively affect how they are perceived at work. I am so excited to be part of this informative discussion to learn how we, as leaders, colleagues, and friends, support women in our workplace by breaking the silence on menopause and perimenopause. Vicky, over to you.
Thanks so much, Raina, and welcome everyone who has tuned in. I'm really excited to be hosting this session today. I am navigating my own menopause journey, so this is a topic that I'm really passionate about, and I'm really proud to be a part of the discussion, particularly as we approach International Women's Day on the 8th of March. I'd like to start by introducing our amazing panel of speakers. Ingrid Weber, CEO ANZ at CXC, also Global CFO. Welcome, Ingrid. Lauren Sharp, the better half of the Tarpod duo. Daisy Wong, Head of Security Awareness at Medibank, and Erin Gui, Head of Health, Safety and Wellbeing at Medibank. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to start by talking about workplace challenges and stigma. So I might pass over to you for the first question, Daisy. From your perspective and experience, can you talk us through some of the current workplace challenges?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you everyone for having me. And I love supporting International Women's Day. I'll just set the scene. I know you can't see it because I'm sitting here, but I'm actually a wheelchair user. So if you go on my LinkedIn, you'll see my favorite color, which is pink. Very obvious, isn't it? My wheelchair is also pink. But obviously being someone with a physical disability comes with its own workplace challenges. And then add on top of it, being a woman, you'll be surprised how many medical professionals, doctors, surgeons that I see who forget that I actually have a reproductive system as well. Like I have literally had doctors, I go to them and I'm talking about my spine problems and things, and I ask, oh, does this impact fertility? They're like, oh, you want to have kids? I'm like, not particularly, but if I wanted to, I can. Like I have the system here and I still have painful periods and things. So I think for me, it's quite hard sometimes to navigate these conversations. So first of all, so for me, I can only speak on my experience, and that is someone with a physical disability. I don't have other illnesses or that I know of, so I can't speak on behalf of those challenges. But like, it's hard enough for me to go to a new workplace. So I've only been at Medibank for 6-7 months. Start a new job and say, hey, I need these requirements. I need parking if I can, but not because I'm special, not because I'm senior. It's because I genuinely need to drive in. which is the easiest. Otherwise, it might take me 2 hours to get to work. So these are already, it's already hard enough to ask for these requirements. And then I need to say, by the way, I also have periods. They can also be painful. How do you navigate those challenges and stigma? Working in cybersecurity, I've often been the only female in a team.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting trying to have those conversations. I ended up creating a safe word, and I would say to the guys in the team, I'm a bit delicate. Can we talk about this later? So that was our code word. They're
I
like,
love
that
that.
delicate. Well, I'm like, I'm happy to call it I've got my period, but
Yeah.
that'll make them uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
I would say, hey, I'm just a bit delicate. I need a couple of days. And I think it's really important, or it's really good if we can, be supported to maybe shift the kind of work we do depending on our cycle. Like,
Yeah.
if a certain task requires high focus and I simply cannot do it, because remember, I already have a lot of hip pain, back pain because of my disability. They're exacerbated because of my, periods. It's really good to have those open and honest conversations and see where, that my manager or the workplace is supportive in shifting those activities. But I know I sound like I've drank the Kool-Aid, but Medibank has been honestly one of the most supportive organisations. I know Erin can speak to this more, but we do have a vision of becoming Australia's healthiest workplace by 2030. So it is really, yes, I do feel very safe to open up and speak about my problems. And the last thing I will say is I am not forgotten. In every single accessible bathroom at Medibank, they have provided tampons and pads,
Oh,
and it says Medibank's got you, period. I love it. I keep sending that photo to people, but I genuinely mean it from the bottom of my heart that it's so nice not to be excluded. The
that's
accessible
so,
bathroom is unisex,
yeah.
right? But yeah.
So, yeah, that's so progressive. And it's so amazing to hear that there's that openness and that support, because I think sometimes it stems back to when we're younger. If it's not an open discussion, when we're younger, we don't feel comfortable bringing it up as we're older. And then if there's not that openness in the workplace, you don't feel comfortable speaking about it. And sounds like you've got such amazing support. Lauren, you've been around many organizations in conversation and also, supporting them with work. How are you finding the stigma within different organizations at the moment?
I'm finding the change actually really good around menopause and things, because I'm in that part of my life now. So I have gone through menopause. I finished it, but I had long menopause. It started when I was 42, 43, and it went for nearly 10 years. So it was long, it was drawn out, it was annoying as hell, as any woman can attest to, standing up in front of a meeting every Friday morning and all my peers who were male at the time and presenting my data on our workforce planning and what was happening in our projects in professional services and things. And next thing you break out in a sweat. And as women who have in menopause know, that sweat is not just at your sweat points, it is your whole body. You sweat between your fingers and you didn't even know it could happen. And it's just unbelievable. But I am finding that people are more accepting of it now. I think because I am unashamedly talking about it. We've done a couple of podcasts on it with Dr. Louise Newsom here at Tarpod. And I think it needs to be recognised because 51% of the population globally is women. These 51%, the majority of these women are going to go through menopause, and every man in their life has a woman, whether it be their mother, their sister, their wife, partner, whatever, friends, they've got a woman in their life. And I want them to start talking about it as well and realise the symptoms in us that we don't realise. That's something they've got to be aware of. And don't just write it off, especially in the medical profession. Don't just write it off as, oh, it's just part of life, just deal with it. And a lot of male doctors say this. There's so much misogyny still in the medical profession out there that they just write it off as part of life. And I've got to say, is if your doctor that writes that off, change doctors. Yeah. I did. and it was the best thing I ever did, was going on HRT. I don't have that overwhelming angst anymore, and anyone going through it will know that you're always on edge. You've got this thing going in your brain that you're on the verge of snapping and killing somebody at any point in time. And you're all probably sitting there nodding and going, yep, I know this one, got that. And that's it. We sometimes don't see it, and we need other people to be able to see it and approach it in a gently and respectful way. And that's why I think if you need to change doctors, do your research. And I'm bringing this one up. I wish I got money for doing this. This book is my Bible. Dr. Newsom's book. I've read it twice now, just picking up on my own symptoms, recognizing things in myself, going on HRT, doing the research about HRT when there was a flawed study 20 odd years ago in the wrong demographic that was saying that it was an increase in breast cancer, and a whole generation of women went off HRT, and the next generations coming through have been warned against it, when this is not the case anymore. So I highly recommend going out and doing your own research, because some of the things that back then when they did that study, it was the wrong age group of women. HRT was actually made out of horse urine 20 years ago, when now it's all synthetic, and they're actually doing tests on women, not on animals or those types of things. So you've got to do your research, and the chances of it increasing to breast cancer from HRT is 1.2%. Your chance of getting breast cancer from taking the contraceptive pill is higher.
Yeah, and there's a high risk of cardiovascular disease and things like that as a result of not taking HRT because of the heightened anxiety and things like that as well.
And osteoporosis as well.
And that's right. There's statistics all over the place, and they tend to just push those negative ones. I'm pro HRT as well.
Totally.
I think Lauren and I were having a chat not long ago, and she said, I just feel like I don't want to kill about 50% of the population now. So I think it's doing its job. And I agree with her. I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah. And it's a weird feeling to describe. And other women understand it when you say everything I've just said. You sit there and go, oh, I get it. I feel like that. Oh, my God, I didn't realize that's what's causing me to feel that way. Maybe I am perimenopause. And you just don't realize it.
Yeah.
So I think talk to your girlfriends, talk to the people around you, talk to your doctor, do your research. And if your doctor's not giving you the answers that you seek, change.
Yes.
Just change.
Yeah.
Because you've got to remember that these guys, they're not going to go through it. They don't know what the feeling is. They don't know what it's all about. They're just reading a book.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so I might throw back to Daisy. So Daisy, within the Medibank organisation, have you seen that cultural perspectives shape the way that menopause is addressed? Is it ignored in workplaces?
No, I don't think I've been here long enough to really speak on that behalf, but I'm sure Erin can add to this. But I've definitely within our own team, I think in terms of the leadership team, there's half women, half men. And we have spoken about it. The men in the leadership team are quite open to talk about, their partners also going through perimenopause or menopause. And I think it's not just that they need to speak about it openly, it's that they've created a safe environment for us to speak about it. So I don't expect men to be like, hi, Davey, how are you doing? How's your cycle? That's a little bit too much. But I think it's just that they are very open and supportive.
Yeah.
And I think just creating that safe space that, we're not ignored.
Yeah.
It can be spoken about. Yeah.
Yeah. Erin, did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think, and Daisy mentioned this, that really setting that baseline kind of expectation and giving people leaders the confidence to really have those wellbeing conversations with people. That's what we've really been talking about, setting that basic foundation for a couple of years at Medibank now. Next stage to build on top of that is to introduce some specific resources for people leaders. We've got an e-learning training coming up soon, as well as some supporting resources and an intranet page that will go with that. So I think if you were just to introduce something like that to a workplace that isn't already in the swing of having those really inclusive kind of wellbeing conversations, I think it might feel a little abrupt or disingenuous, but I think because we've built that capability over time, plus we have the added benefit of being a healthcare company, so we're definitely very skewed towards, caring for people's health. But yeah, I think that's definitely evident at Medibank.
So maybe continuing on from that with the introduction of resources and policies, what are the biggest barriers that HR teams are facing when they're trying to introduce these policies, and how can they kind of overcome it?
Yeah, this is a really great question, and it's one that's probably it can be a bit overwhelming, I think, when HR professionals or wellbeing professionals are thinking about how to tackle this. And I think a lot of people talk about having a policy or leave. They're really big kind of steps, and for a large organisation can actually be very difficult to implement. So I would really encourage people to start to have a think about what are the smaller kind of actions that you can put in place that potentially will have a really big impact. So one of the first things that we did when we were really thinking about how to support women and menopause and perimenopause in the workplace was to put the pads and tampons in all of our female and all gender bathrooms. I mean, in 2025, it seems wild to me that that is not the case in all of our bathrooms. But and I think particularly for women going through this change and transition, irregular periods and periods that can come on unexpectedly, is a symptom that people talk about a lot. So providing that really basic support for women in the bathroom when they need it, huge impact. And I'm glad that that's had an impact for you too, Daisy. It's one of the things that I am the most proud about in my whole career. And I too have taken photos of myself in front of that vending machine because I'm just really proud of it. But just things like providing a webinar or an information session for teams. We did that back in October last year to celebrate World Menopause Day. We've also got a really great resource that's a 20-minute masterclass from Dr. Ginny Mansberg, who's a really renowned Australian expert in menopause and perimenopause. It's just a 20-minute little video that our people can access anytime and potentially share with their family and friends as well, just to kind of create that conversation and that ripple effect. But there's plenty of little things that really can be done as well as having those conversations. And then you get to kind of the more meatier things once you've set that foundation. So we're just about to launch a new service for employees that will provide free access to menopause specialist GPs anywhere in Australia, virtual consults.
That's wonderful.
So that's a really kind of big step, and not all organisations will be able to do that. But yeah, I think thinking about breaking it down into those small kind of really high impact activities that can be done in most workplaces.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And I think like carrying on from your point about like normalizing conversations, Ingrid, I might throw over to you because I'm lucky enough to work with you, and our organisation is very progressive and very open. We talk about a lot of things. How do you think other businesses can balance the need for privacy with the importance of normalising those conversations of menopause in the workplace?
Thanks, Vicky. I think, our approach we took was really underpinned by our core values. So we have two core values that really fit around that. The first one is we are family, and the second one is we are honest. And what this creates is a culture of openness and trust and respect and care for one another. I think during this phase, as you go through perimenopause and menopause, there will be people who want to keep it private, and there will be people who want to talk about it. And so I think we are led by our employees as to what they need. For people who want privacy, we support them through our EAP program. For people who want to talk about it, we've almost created mini communities within our office. We all know who's going through menopause, and we get to share our stories. But I think it's also about advocating it as part of just overall well-being, getting people to share their stories. I don't think having a forced conversation works. I think to meet people where they are and what they need support them around that. But for me, the key thing is, creating those little communities, because I think when you have a tribe of people who understand what you're going through, you get to share your stories. And I think the other key thing for us is also about, one thing that's really become more and more evident to me is the education, and perhaps the lack of education around symptoms. So many times people go, oh, menopause, it's the hot flush, and they literally put it in that square box. There are so many other things that impact it. In perimenopause, one of the big things is increased anxiety, which can almost be crippling. You have the joint aches, the frozen shoulders, plantar fasciitis is another symptom of it. You do have all these other little bits that come into your world. One of my symptoms that drove me mad is I started, my tinnitus in my ears went in overdrive, which meant that if I was sitting in a meeting where there was more than one person talking, or people talking at the side of me where I couldn't actually see their faces, I couldn't hear what they were saying. And then you're going, sorry, can you say that again? Can you say that? So it's these things, understanding that there are so many different symptoms. And I think the other people, creating an environment where people can go, look, Daisy, I loved your reference earlier where, you went, I'm delicate, is just going, I'm having a challenging day today, and I just need a bit of understanding. But in the same breath, I think if you've got a tribe of people, people can also notice those symptoms and call you on it and go, hey, are you okay today? Do you need a little bit of this or a little bit of that? So I think it's tricky for organizations, depending on their size, depending on their culture, to create the right balance between privacy and the importance of normalizing the conversation. But I think it's just the more we talk about it and the more we move it away from being an issue to a normal workplace well-being, discussion, or supported with programs, I think that takes the stigma away. Thanks, Vicky.
I love that. I love the smaller groups. I think that's a really great way just to open up and just it not feeling like it's this big thing. It's like you've got a little support network, and that's amazing. One of the big things that I started going through, and I do a lot of presentations in front of clients and these sorts of things, my cognitive decline went just down straight away. And so I was talking about things. I'm going, the people that work for us, the people at contractors. Yeah, that's it. And, I've been talking about contingent workforce management for 25 years. So I started thinking, what is going on? And so if I forget what I'm saying, I apologize in advance. It's not on purpose, I promise. Lauren, sorry, I've skipped you before. You got something to say?
That's all right. But that cognitive decline, all of those things, and everything that Ingrid just said with the array of symptoms that are out there, these things affect our work. They affect our self-confidence. The self-doubt and imposter syndrome kicks in as well. We start to think, oh my God, what is wrong with me? I've just forgotten a word I use every single day, but I can remember a song from my teenage years word for word. You forget why you walk into a room. So the average age of women going through menopause is 51, 52 years old. But as I said, I had early menopause. So 25% of women surveyed on the National Women in Australia, they report that these symptoms make everyday duties difficult to perform, which can overflow into our workplace, not just around the home. So people end up missing work. They feel they demote themselves because of the way we feel mentally and physically. We think, oh my God, I'm slipping at work. I can't get this done. Oh, maybe I should retire. And these are numbers that are coming up where women are quitting their jobs. They're not staying where they ought to be and pushing themselves and things like that because of symptoms that they feel are going to inhibit the way their career is going to go. And they're making career decisions because of menopause and perimenopause.
Yeah. And I think I forgot to mention this earlier. Please send questions in. It is interactive. We want to be able to answer and provide the information that everyone wants to hear. So we do have a question from Jessica Evans. question to the panel: how can doctors differentiate symptoms from of perimenopause and other health conditions that you have been diagnosed with? Is it our hormone levels?
Can't
Anyone
answer
wanna
that
comment?
question as I'm not a doctor. But all I can say is you ask that question. Do your research. Go in informed. Like I read so much on it before I went in and said, right, these are my symptoms. I've done this online quiz and this online quiz. Everything seems to marry up. This is where I'm sitting. This is the way I feel. And my doctor was really good. The first doctor I went to, oh, well, you're just going through perimenopause and menopause. That's all right. It's part of life. Didn't want to deal with anything else. He just swept it under the carpet. I said, but I don't want to feel like this.
Yeah.
I don't have to go through life like this.
The
This is
other
the rest of my life. It's going to be a bloody nightmare.
Yeah.
So I changed doctors. So
Yeah.
ask the questions, read, go online and do some of these self-assessment quizzes, and you can work out some of it yourself and go and talk to your doctor and go informed. That's
100%. And I just add to that, ladies, we all know when something is not right.
Yeah.
We know that we're not functioning the way and we're not feeling the way we used to feel before. You know, I knew something wasn't right.
Yeah.
I considered myself a very even-keeled person. And I knew something was wrong when I arrived at work after literally wanting to kill someone on the road because they cut in front of me. And I was like, hang on, that's a slight overreaction then. But you know something's not right. If you go to your doctors and they're not giving you what you need, find someone else. There are really, really good doctors out there. There is a lot of material out there nowadays about the symptoms, and they are wide-ranging. But if you're not comfortable with what they're telling you, change. You're not beholden to them at all.
Yep.
And
yeah, I think that's what I was going to just say when I was thinking about what my journey is, listening to your body. Like Ingrid said, you know when something's not right. And I was starting to have these conversations of, went to go get my hair done, and she said, oh gosh, your hair's thin. I said, yeah, I've noticed that. She's like, how old are you again? I'm like, oh, okay. And then there was something else, and someone said, how old are you again? And I'm like, oh, this is coming up a bit at the moment. And then I started thinking to myself, okay, there's something else going on. So I started looking into it. And the thing with me was, I had an endometrial ablation many, many years ago. So I menstruate, but I no longer get a period and haven't for some time. And generally they ask you, when was the last period you have? Well, I don't know because I don't know when I was getting it. So it was really, really difficult. But when you look at the symptoms and what I was experiencing, it stacks up. And then now with the I guess proactive treatment that I've decided that is the best for me, I'm seeing an amazing difference in my life and my well-being and how I feel and my energy levels. It clearly is what has been happening to me for some time now. Okay, so I think we've answered all of the questions, and there's some great comments as well here. Thank you everyone for getting involved. Might go back to the workplace, and I'll throw back to Erin now. So how are there any particular industries or regions that you have seen that are leading the way with menopause-friendly workplaces?
Well, speaking of menopause friendly, we've actually just partnered with Menopause Friendly Australia, who are an organisation whose sole purpose is to help other businesses create a menopause-friendly environment. So that's been a really great partnership. And if you are from a workplace and wondering kind of where to start, then it's probably a really good place to be. They provide some really fantastic support, some free resources as part of your membership, information about policies and building a policy and creating a strategy, and also provide a pathway to accreditation. And I believe there are only a small handful of companies in Australia. I couldn't tell you who they are off the top of my head at the moment.
I can.
Okay, yay.
I'm going to throw you next, Lauren.
Deloitte and Anglo Shanti Gold were the first two companies in Australia to join that program, Erin.
Yeah, we're hoping to join that esteemed list in the next 12 months.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. And yeah, Lauren, I was going to say, you obviously have lots of conversations with different organisations. Are you seeing a particular theme in terms of the industries that are menopause friendly? Yeah.
Absolutely. It seems to be coming, and it's led by enterprise, obviously, such as yourselves. And what Medibank are doing is, I can't praise you ladies enough. I think it's fantastic. So well done, Erin. I think you're goddess on this one. And yeah, so last year, the two companies I mentioned, Deloitte and Anglo Gold Ashanti, were the first two companies in Australia to get this certification from Menopause Friendly Australia. Now, this is an offshoot of a UK-based advocacy and advisory organisation, which is actually a pretty good organisation, and it comes with different doctors with varying opinions on what they believe around HRT. Some don't believe in it, some do. Some like to take the natural method, but everyone's an individual in their different requirements and their different needs. Because I know personally, I tried the herbal method. It didn't work. It relieved the symptoms slightly, but it just didn't work for me. So it wasn't. But I do know that Ernst Young, KPMG, etc., and a few other companies have also come on board with this program as well. And it is growing. It is a movement that is growing. And like you were saying earlier, Ingrid, Erin, sorry, about your online program, which I think is awesome. And if I can come as a guest, I'd love to do it. And getting men involved.
Yeah.
We really need them to recognise this and be our allies on this. They don't have to talk about it. They just have to be aware of it, know it's there, and be sympathetic.
Yeah. And that's actually, that's a really, really good point. I was hoping that we'd get a really good cohort of male listeners today so that they could hear. I know that that we talk about our symptoms and we're going through a lot, but also it's good for them to understand, to know how they can support us. I'll often get asked by family members who are male, how can I support you? So carrying on with that theme, Ingrid, why is it crucial for men to be included in the conversation rather than treating menopause as just a female issue?
Look, I think men are a significant part of the workforce and who we work with. Every single male in our workforce has, as Lauren mentioned earlier, a mom, a sister, a wife, a partner who is potentially going through this. I think through their awareness and understanding, they can make a huge difference on the impact that we're having when we're going through this by creating that, support and empathy. At our workplace, we don't really have women's issues or men's issues. It's everything around, well-being, and some of the guys find the conversation uncomfortable, like when we talk about other well-being programs like mental health as well. Sometimes the guys find it a little bit challenging talking about these things in an open environment. But what I have really found is that when you do bring them into the conversation, they are actually very supportive and caring and understanding. And I think sometimes we don't allow them that space to be that for us. So I think it's really, really important that we bring them in. I feel very strongly around, the wordings when we use things like women's issues, because it's not it's part of our lives. And as we heard earlier, a big part of the workplace communities and our home communities it's not an issue in any way, shape or form. It's just part of overall, well-being. And so how do we support each other as we go through well-being issue or well-being challenges in the workplace?
Yeah, agree. Does anyone else have anything to add there? No. All right, Daisy, I might throw back to you. As a leader, how can other leaders and organisations proactively bring this topic into the workplace without it feeling like a forced discussion?
I think I mentioned it before, creating a safe space, and that doesn't just talk about, it's not just related to menopause, perimenopause, or women's health. I think just how do you create a safe psychological place for everyone to be open to share their problems? And I said this yesterday, actually, because someone asked me what's the most effective, and I said action speaks a lot louder than words.
Yeah.
So we can talk to the cows come home, how supportive we are, how the team is, but I think action speaks a lot louder. So what I mean by that is, my manager actually, logging off on time, or really supporting that he goes to pick up his children. I don't have kids, but also not making me feel like, because I have felt like that as well, being, a childless woman. It's like sometimes I feel uncomfortable asking for more, or being someone with a disability. I've already been given a lot of flexibility. So then
Yeah.
it's like, but I also, again, repeat, I have my periods. I am going to go through perimenopause sooner or later. I'm 37 now. Apparently it could start as early as 35,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
symptoms. And the thing is, the symptoms may be more mild, and then they progress to more severe. So I think, action speaks a lot louder than just words. And I think it's really good to start talking, right? Like, you need to start talking about it, increase awareness. But I think as leaders, whether you're male or female, how do you actually act upon what you say you're going to do? And like I said, just lead by example.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Erin, I might come back to you. How can we ensure that menopause inclusive policies, they don't just exist on paper, but they're actually implemented and embraced by leadership teams?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think I would actually, and to be clear, we don't have a menopause policy at this point, and I don't know whether we actually will. I think, and it's not to say that we won't, but I'm still kind of thinking it through. I think the secret sauce is making sure that this is integrated and interwoven throughout kind of all of our procedures, or all the ways that we talk about things. Maybe it needs to be in our overarching leave procedure, or perhaps it needs to be reflected in our wellbeing space. I think making sure that it's integrated at every level is important. The other thing that I'll say is that there might be surprising gains in places that you haven't thought. So we've just got some data through hot off the press that I'm really excited to talk about. Some of you will know that Medibank have been trialling the 4-day work week for probably about 12 months now. We've had a cohort of about 300 people do that trial, and then we've just added a further 300 just recently. So we've got a good portion of our workforce trialing that. And we've partnered with Macquarie University to really analyse and look at our data and make sure that we're making decisions based on what the data is telling us for this trial. And overwhelmingly, we're seeing increases in health and wellbeing from this cohort that are experimenting with the 4-day work week. And I reached out to Macquarie a little while ago and I said, hey, I've got a hypothesis that even though we've already got great data to suggest that everyone in this trial is having significant health and wellbeing benefits, my hypothesis is that women in this trial that are aged between 45 and 60 will have substantially even higher gains. And the data's just come back, and that is actually correct. So providing the flexibility, providing the additional downtime has had substantial increase in overarching health and wellbeing for these women. We've seen a decrease in things like unhealthy eating in this cohort, which is really important. Overarching this cohort have had improvements to their incidental movement, which is great. But what else has happened is that those improvements to health have had a direct correlation, and the Macquarie data shows this, to engagement, which in turn has had a direct impact on performance.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
Yeah, so I think a policy and kind of an overarching focus is one thing, but it's the other sort of wellbeing policies and workplace policies that potentially will have a really significant impact.
That's amazing. And I think this is one of the things I've always loved about, because Raina shares a lot of stories about Medibank working so closely with you guys, is you listen to your workforce and then you try things and you see what works and look at the data. It's a very, very informed decision with everything you do based on the feedback that you're getting. And I think that's an amazing approach. super progressive.
Yeah, we're very excited.
I just need to mention what Frances has written in the chat because I really resonated with this. So I put a lot of symptoms down to life, being a carer to a mum with dementia. I was looking after everyone but not myself. There's also things I've put up with all my life that have been dismissed as normal. It's only the last 6 weeks that I bit the bullet and booked in to see a GP who's amazing, lots of tests and scans, then more, and we've got results. So many terms I'd never heard before and a couple of things diagnosed, have a few more results to come in with my GP. So I similarly was going through a lot in my life, unfortunately separated from my husband. I was putting a lot of what I was feeling, the heightened anxiety, the insomnia and things like that down to that as well. So it's really hard. And being a late mum, I had my daughter when I was 34. I'd just gotten through the whole post-natal stuff. And then all of a sudden this started. I'm thinking, hang on, what's going on? I've just been through all of this. What's happening? So I really resonate with that. And you're not alone, Frances. Like that's something I think a lot of people experience as well. You just don't know that that's what's going on. Lauren?
Well, I'm reading what Frances has written there. I totally resonate with what she said. I went undiagnosed with endometriosis until my late 30s.
Wow.
And all my life, it was just written off. Oh, you just get really painful periods. That's all it is. And that comes back to the misogyny in the medical profession as well, because it's a male-dominated industry, and they just write it off and not doing the research and things like that. And when I got diagnosed, that explained so much of what was going on, and what I was experiencing was not normal at all. So asking the questions and doing your own research, and because we're taught to rely on the medical professions because they're the experts, and we all know that they hate Dr. Google and all this stuff. And honestly, step out of your comfort zone and find out, and ask the questions. And as we're all saying, if they don't like it, change doctors.
Erin, you've got something to add?
Yeah, I think this just really reinforces the value and the having these conversations in the workplace. And I think for so long we've just thought, hey, this isn't a workplace issue. Why would we be talking about this in the workplace? But the more we have these conversations, the more it plants seeds with people, whether it's women experiencing these symptoms or perhaps it's men who are supporting them. But I think, when we think about this cohort, women aged 45 to 60 are the fastest growing workforce demographic. So we've got more women in this demographic at work than we ever have before. And for us at Medibank, actually a quarter of our workforce is women in between 45 and 60. So that's pretty big stats. But it just really reinforces why it's so important to have these conversations in the workplace. And I had a really similar example where a couple of years ago, when I was first starting to do research about menopause and perimenopause as part of my job in wellbeing, I was having all of these really passionate conversations with my team about what I was learning. And it wasn't until a couple of weeks later that a colleague came back to me, and this person had been having some cardiac issues for the kind of preceding 12 months. And she said, I can't believe this, that I'd been having all of these cardiac issues, and at no point did my GP or my cardiologist mention anything about menopause and the impact that has on hormone levels, and then therefore can cause these cardiac issues. She said it wasn't until we had this conversation that it kind of inspired me to go and have an appointment with a menopause specialist GP, and now she's kind of headed down this track of treating those symptoms. And that's just one person, one impact from one conversation. Think about how many people we can impact by normalizing this and talking about it in the workplace.
Yeah, agree. My conversation started in the gym, and I'd be working out with all of the girls, and someone would say something, and then I'd be like, oh, that's me. Like, the loose skin, I'll be looking down as I'm working out, and things were moving around a lot more than they used to. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then one of the ladies that was next to me goes, oh, I remember when I was your age, and that was when I started going through menopause. I'm like, okay. And the gym kind of normalized it for me, which was really great, because then I started talking to my girlfriends about it, and they're going, oh my going through that too. And the conversations get bigger and bigger from there. And that's when I started realizing it needs to be a very open conversation. You need to be showing your gal pals that it's very, very normal. So I guess sticking with the theme of policies and organisations and how they can support. So and maybe I'll start with you, Erin, and others can add in if they want to. If you were advising a company with no menopause initiatives, where do you think they should start?
Yeah, I think just start small. You could quite easily, get someone in to have a conversation, run a webinar or a training session. Definitely look into Menopause-Friendly Australia. It's not an expensive partnership, but I think it does add a lot of value and really does provide that kind of step-by-step hand-holding. I know our Medibank corporate health team also have some great things available. The 20-minute masterclass that I mentioned about, that was the webinar, that's available through our Medibank corporate team. And we've also recently at Medibank just launched for our employees a new app called Work Better that has a whole series of really great kind of just-in-time content around menopause and perimenopause as well. So there are lots of little steps. The other person doing some really great work in this space, one of our favourites, is Lizzie Williamson, who does 2-minute moves. I don't know if anyone here has ever seen Lizzie before. She's fantastic. We partner with her, and she's just started to develop a whole set of 2-minute moves specifically for menopause and strength training. So that's something that we'll be looking at as well.
And that was one of the biggest things when I was doing my research. I'm lucky I've been doing strength training for quite some time now, but the muscle mass that you lose as you start going through perimenopause and menopause, which is where you releases the hormone, the estrogen. So as you lose that, the symptoms get worse and worse and worse. So strength training or resistance-based training is so important when you're going through this phase.
It really is. And I think for women, particularly in our busy jobs, in our busy lives, we do really feel like sometimes it's difficult to get to the gym for a whole, commit to that, being there for a whole hour session or a full workout or whatever it is. And so being able to provide little snippets that our employees can do during their workday, just find 2 minutes. That's all you need. You can either do some activities without any tools, but grabbing a set of dumbbells, like I've got a couple of sets of dumbbells that I've just got on my desk. And sometimes when I'm in a phone call, I'll just be, doing the thing, and it's easy. We can do it. It just can incorporate into our whole throughout our day, rather than sort of needing to build up to having this big once-a-day workout session.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any tips for anybody wanting to introduce menopause-friendly initiatives?
I might just add, Erin, have you seen the walking meeting at Medibank that we're trying to do?
I sure have. I've been very excited about this.
Which I was very surprised and also appreciated. Our CIO at Medibank reached out and said, how does that make you feel, a walking meeting? I said, any chance we could make it a moving meeting? Just because I don't walk doesn't mean I can't move. But it's just a simple thing like that. Just having the conversation. I'm not personally offended, but there are other wheelchair users within our employees, and I just think it's just more inclusive. That's all.
Love that language.
Yeah. I agree with you, Daisy, on that, and being more inclusive, because it's just words, and not everyone's going to speak up. Not everyone wants to talk about it, as Ingrid pointed out earlier, that some people take this as a very private thing that they're going through. But just even if you want to keep it private, but knowing that support's there if you require it, or someone's there to have a conversation with if you want to, does help. You're not alone. Just know this. We're all going to go through it. And you will find your person that will talk to you in the way you want to deal with it as well. And it's just, we're going to deal with it. We're going to get through it. And you do come out the other side and you feel better about it. And I feel stronger. is my experience. Like, I'm out the other side now. I feel stronger. I feel level-headed. I feel informed and educated about my body now more than I've ever been in my life. And yeah, you get to a point, I think one of the underlying things that comes with it, and as you get older as a woman too, you just don't want to put up with the shit anymore.
Yeah. You've got something to say, Ingrid?
Yeah, I think that's definitely what I was going to echo there, Lauren. I think, yes, it is challenging, and there's a lot of change that's happening in your body, and you're learning how to deal with things in a new way. But I would say that, it is also an incredibly empowering time in your life, and you do get to the point where, as women, we're actually putting ourselves first. Instead of caring for everyone else, we have to focus on caring for ourselves. And there are so many women who have gone through this stage of their life where, when they've come out of it, they've written books, they've climbed mountains. Like, it doesn't have to be this thing that is a shameful thing that we have to go through as we quietly pass on to the next pasture in our life. I call bullshit on all of that. It is very empowering, and there's nothing wrong about talking about it. If you need your teammates and your tribe around you to support you and cheer you on through it, make use of all those opportunities, about creating those communities, because it really is an exciting part of your life.
Yeah, agree, Ingrid. I remember having a conversation at the gym again with this lady, Jo, who I work out with, and I think Jo must be mid-60s. And I remember saying to her, when I was talking about it, my skin drooping and things like that, I said, what am I going to do? And she's like, lean into it, babe. There's nothing you can do about it. There is absolutely nothing you can do about it. This is just going to happen whether you like it or not. The best thing you can do is lean into it. It was the best advice I had. As soon as I started that, I started, like, the humor started coming with it as well. Sorry, had the sweats, I'm a bit late at the moment, or even like Hayley, who some of us know we work with, would say, I'd be talking about something and I've repeated it, and she's like, how's the HRT going, babe? And like the humor, so once you start doing that, it all of a sudden it's not so bad anymore, and I just felt so much better about it. And I think you just got to lean into it, accept it, it's going to happen, and that's all we can do, really.
Yeah, and you've got to take away that you're not alone. That's the big thing. You're not alone, okay?
Yes.
And you've got to laugh. If you don't laugh, you're going to just sit back and cry.
Yeah, no,
and we don't want to do that at all.
No,
it's you've just got to laugh about it, everyone, and we're going to get there. And just know that you are. I can't stress the not alone thing more than anything else. But I always found too, one of my symptoms was I couldn't drink alcohol anymore.
Oh, that's been a big one for me too.
Yeah. So this is one to watch out for, because I couldn't metabolize alcohol anymore, and I didn't pick up on it immediately. I was like Russian roulette with booze, with wine, where I'd go out and have one glass of wine and I could almost be falling on the ground drunk on a glass of wine. And yet other times I'd go out and I could almost down 2 bottles of wine on my own and go, I feel fine.
Yeah.
But it was a real Russian roulette. So I actually gave up alcohol for 9 years to get through menopause. Yep. And now I just have an occasional drink here and there. But that was a big one for me, was to get through it. And I found when I stopped drinking too, the sweats eased off.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
So, look, but everyone's different. You're all going to go through this on your own individual level.
Before we wrap up, I'll throw to Erin and Daisy for some final thoughts.
I was just reflecting on a woman that I worked with in my when I was in my early 20s, and she was going through menopause, and she would refer to her hot flashes as power surges. So I would just really love to normalize that language, please. So when I'm at that stage, and if that happens to me, I'd quite like to be having power surges as opposed to hot flashes.
Love it.
I really like that too. The only thing I would say is to wrap up is also help like the men in our lives understand it's not just, the women they work with. A lot of them have, wives, partners, daughters, and I've found that that's really helped me start a conversation with them. Because
Yeah.
if I come from just, I'm your colleague and I need you to be understanding that I'm delicate, they're like, cool, I work with you 8 hours a day, maybe see you 2 or 3 times a week. But I think it's just helping them understand, like, not what's in it for them, but you know what I mean, just to help them understand that if it can happen to me,
Make
it
it
can also happen
relatable.
to them. Exactly,
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
relatable. And I think
Yeah.
it just destigmatizes everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because I often remind my male friends, I'm like, you have a daughter. They're like, and I'm like, she will also go through this. You
Yeah,
just have to
that's
go through
right.
the first bit, which is probably preteen and then
Yeah.
teens.
Yeah.
And yeah, she will
Then they'll
help me
have
go through
children
this.
or won't, and
Yeah,
then they'll go through this. It's all these phases that we go through.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, I want to say a big thank you to everyone on our panel for sharing all of your personal professional advice. I think I personally find these discussions so amazing. I go away feeling empowered, but also I think some great initiatives that we've shared as well for people to take away and implement in their workplaces. We will be sending out an ebook post this, and we'll be sharing the webinar as well. So if there's anybody's got any questions, all of our details will be on everything that we're sharing, and feel free to reach out. But big thanks to our panelists, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.